My 16-year-old daughter took a DNA test for a school project. 3 weeks later, 6-year-old girl on our kitchen table and asked, "Mrs. Harper, have you ever seen this child?" I looked at the photograph. No.
He turned it around. On the back was a date, October 3rd, 2009. Then he said,
"Your daughter's DNA says she's closely related to her." That was impossible, because the girl in the photograph disappeared 17 years ago, and according to police she was never found. My name is Rachel Harper. I'm 41 years old. My husband, Mark, and I have been married for 18 years. We have one daughter. Emily, 16 years old. Straight A student. Terrible. Driver. Obsessed with true crime podcasts, and apparently curious enough about our family history to blow apart everything. I thought I knew about it. It started with a biology assignment. Emily's class was studying genetics. Students weren't required to take actual DNA tests. But one of her friends had ordered a genealogy kit. So Emily wanted one too. I didn't think anything of it. Our family wasn't particularly mysterious. My parents were both alive. Mark's father had died years earlier, but his mother Susan lived about 30 minutes away. We had family photographs. Birth certificates, wedding albums. Too. The results arrived. I was making dinner when she ran into the kitchen holding her phone. "Mom." "What?" "You lied to me." I looked up. "About what?" "Our family." I laughed. "What are you talking about?" She put the phone in front of me. Her ethnicity estimate was exactly what we'd expected. Mostly European ancestry. Nothing surprising. "What am I looking at?" "Matches." She scrolled. There were cousins. And cousins. People I'd never heard of. Then she pointed to one. Daniel Mercer, close family match. I frowned. "Who's Daniel Mercer?" "That's what I'm asking you."
"Oh."
"Close?" Emily tapped the screen. The estimated relationship showed several. "Not that I know of. Maybe Grandma does." That should have been the end of it. An unknown relative. A family secret from another generation. Interesting. Maybe awkward, but not terrifying. Then Emily clicked. Daniel's family tree. There were only 3 people visible. Daniel Mercer, his wife, and a little girl, Abigail Mercer, born 2003. Beside her name was a gray label. Missing. 2009. Emily stopped scrolling. "Mom." I leaned closer. There was a photograph. A little girl with brown hair standing beside a red bicycle. Big smile. Green eyes. I stared at her longer than I meant to. Something about her felt familiar. Not her face exactly. Something smaller. Her expression. The shape of her eyebrows. Emily whispered, "She kind of looks like me." I immediately said, "No, she doesn't." But she did. A little. Maybe it's just the eyes. Emily opened another photograph. Abigail sitting at a birthday table. Then another. Abigail wearing a yellow raincoat. Then one taken shortly before she disappeared. I felt uncomfortable. Close it. Why? Because this is somebody's missing child. We shouldn't be digging through it like entertainment. Emily looked embarrassed. "Okay." She closed the page. But later that night, I searched the name myself. Abigail Mercer missing. 2009. The results appeared immediately. She had disappeared from a small town called Bellwether. About 90 miles from us. 6 years old. Last seen October 3rd, 2009. Her father, Daniel Mercer, had been working that afternoon. Her mother, Caroline, had taken Abigail to a community fall festival. At approximately 4:20 p.m. Caroline lost sight of her daughter near a row of food stands. Within 15 minutes, police were searching. By sunset, volunteers had joined. By morning, Abigail's photograph was everywhere. No body was ever found. No confirmed sighting. No arrest. Nothing. I looked at the little girl's photograph. And at Emily's school picture on our refrigerator. The resemblance was stronger than I wanted it to be, but that still didn't mean anything. Families share faces. DNA databases produce unexpected relatives all the time. I closed my laptop. And told myself we'd ask Susan about Daniel Mercer sometime. We never got the chance, because 2 days later, someone knocked on the door. I opened it around 6 in the evening. 2. People stood outside. A man in his 50s, a woman slightly younger. They showed identification. Detective Aaron Cole, Detective Maya Torres, Mrs. Rachel Harper? Yes. Is your husband home? He'll be back soon. May we come in? The question immediately made me nervous. What's this about? Detective Cole looked at Torres. Then back at me. Does the name Abigail Mercer mean anything to you? Everything inside me went cold. How do you know about that? May we come inside? I let them in. Emily was upstairs. I texted her not to come down. Then we sat at the kitchen table. Detective Torres opened a folder. She placed Abigail's photograph in front of me. Same red bicycle. Same green eyes. Have you ever seen this child? Only online. When? My daughter received a DNA match. With Daniel Mercer? Yes. Detective Cole nodded. Daniel contacted us yesterday. Why? He's kept his DNA profile active for years, hoping someone might eventually connect to Abigail. My stomach tightened. You think Emily is related to her? We know she is related to Daniel. How closely? We need additional testing to determine that. What does this have to do with Abigail? Detective Torres slid another document toward me. When Abigail disappeared, investigators preserved several biological samples. What kind? A toothbrush. Hair from a brush. A baby tooth. I looked at her, and with Daniel's permission, one sample was recently submitted for updated familial comparison. I already knew what she was going to say. The system flagged Emily. Yes. How closely? Detective Cole leaned forward, closer than a cousin. My mouth went dry. How much closer? We don't want to speculate until we run a direct comparison. Then why are you here? Because we need your permission to collect a new sample from Emily. I stood. No. Both detectives remained calm. Detective Torres said, Mrs.
Harper, my daughter is 16. We understand.
You don't show up at my house and tell me my child is connected to a missing person case and then ask for her DNA without explaining why. Detective Cole nodded. That's fair. Then, explain. He looked at the photograph. The preliminary comparison suggests Emily may be a first-degree relative of Abigail Mercer. I stared at him. What does first degree mean? Parent, child, full sibling. I almost laughed. Emily was born in 2010. We know. Abigail disappeared in 2009. Yes. So she can't be her mother. Correct. And? Obviously she's not her child. Correct. The room went quiet. I finally understood. You think Abigail was her sister? Detective Torres answered carefully. That's one possibility. No, Mrs. Harper, no, Emily doesn't have a sister. Are you certain? I stared at her. I gave birth to her. I understand. I was there. We aren't questioning that. Then what are you questioning? Detective Cole asked. Was Emily conceived naturally? The question felt invasive. What does that have to do with anything? Please. I hesitated. Then answered. No. Both detectives looked at each other. My heart started pounding. She was conceived through IVF. Where? Horizon Fertility Center. Detective Torres stopped writing. When? 2009. What month? November. Exactly 1 month after Abigail disappeared. Detective Cole's expression changed. Do you know whether donor genetic material was used? No. Donor eggs? No. Donor sperm? No. Both you and Mark were supposed to be the biological parents? Yes. Were embryos created? Yes. How many? I tried to remember. 6. How many were transferred? 1. And the others? 2 weren't viable. 3 were frozen. Detective Torres looked up. What happened to the frozen embryos? We eventually authorized the clinic to dispose of them. When? Years later. She wrote something down. I felt increasingly uncomfortable. What are you thinking? Neither. Answered immediately. Detective? Cole finally said, we need Emily's sample. Why? Because if the preliminary relationship is correct, the IVF records may be relevant to Abigail's disappearance. I stared at him. How could a fertility clinic have anything to do with a missing 6-year-old? Before he could answer, the front door opened. Mark walked in. Rachel? He saw the detectives, then the photograph, and, stopped. Not slowed. Stop. His keys slipped from his hand. Detective Torres noticed. So did I. Mark stared at Abigail's photograph. What is that doing here? I felt something change inside me. You know her? He didn't answer. Mark. Detective Cole stood. Mr. Harper? Mark looked at me. Then at the detectives. Rachel, we need to talk. My stomach dropped. Do you know Abigail Mercer? Mark rubbed both hands over his face. Yes. The room went silent. How? He looked at the floor. I knew her mother. Carolyn? Yes. How? We worked together. I stared at him. You never told me that. It was before. Emily. Before Emily? Yes. Before or after we got married. Mark didn't answer. That was my answer. Were you having an affair? No. Then why are you acting like this? Because Caroline asked me for help. With what?
He looked at the detectives. I think I need a lawyer.
That sentence terrified me more than anything else he'd said. Detective Cole remained calm. You're free to contact one. I stepped between them. No. Mark looked at me. You don't get to do that. Rachel, you don't get to say lawyer and stop talking when this involves our daughter. It isn't what you think. I don't know what to think. Emily's voice came from the stairs. Dad? We all turned. She had been listening. Of course she had. She came down slowly. Who is Abigail? Mark looked at her. His face collapsed. Emily held up her phone. Because I just got a message from Daniel Mercer. Detective Cole immediately asked, What message? Emily read it. He says he wants to meet me. Emily, don't respond. I already did. My heart sank. What did you say? I asked why, and he sent me a picture. She turned her phone toward us. It wasn't a photograph of Abigail. It was a photograph of Mark, 17 years younger, standing beside Carolyn Mercer, Abigail's mother. His arm was around her. Carolyn was visibly pregnant. I looked at my husband. What is this? Mark didn't speak. Emily zoomed in. On the back of the scanned photograph was a handwritten date. February 2003. Abigail was born later that year. My voice shook. Mark. I can explain. Is Abigail your daughter? He closed his eyes. No. Then why do you have your arm around her pregnant mother? Because Caroline was my sister. Everything stopped. What? My half-sister. I stared at him. You don't have a sister. I did. Did? Mark looked at Abigail's photograph. Caroline died 4 years ago. Emily whispered, Then Abigail would be Dad's niece. Yes. Detective Torres looked at Mark, and Emily would be Abigail's first cousin. Mark nodded. But Detective Cole didn't. He looked at the DNA report. Then at Emily. No. Everyone turned toward him. What? He placed his finger on the preliminary comparison. This isn't consistent with first cousins. Mark's face changed. Detective Cole continued. The amount of shared DNA is far too high. Emily looked frightened. So what does that mean?
Cole
answered, If the test is accurate, Abigail isn't your cousin. I grabbed the edge of the table. Then what is she? He looked directly at Emily. Most likely your biological sister. Nobody moved. Then Mark whispered, That is impossible. Detective Torres turned to him. Why? Mark stared at Abigail's photograph. Because Abigail was 6 years old when Emily was conceived. Cole nodded. Exactly. He slid the photograph toward Mark. Which is why we don't think Abigail is the mystery. I stared at him. What does that mean? He looked at me. We think Emily is. The girl who wasn't supposed to exist, we think Emily is the mystery. Detective Cole's words made no sense. I looked at my daughter. Emily stood near the stairs with her phone still in her hand. 16 years old. My daughter. The child I'd carried. The baby I'd delivered. There was nothing mysterious about where she'd come from. What are you saying? Cole didn't answer immediately. Detective Torres closed the folder in front of her. We need to verify the DNA before we go further. No, you don't get to say something like that and then stop. Rachel, I turned toward Mark. And you don't say another word until you tell me everything about Carolyn. Emily stepped closer. Dad, you had a sister? Mark looked at her. Yes. For how long? He flinched. My whole life. And you never told me? It was complicated. Emily gave a bitter laugh. You people really love that word. She was right. I sat down. Start talking. Mark looked at the detectives. Cole nodded. You can speak if you choose. Mark pulled out a chair. For several seconds, he just stared at Abigail's photograph. Then he began. My father had another family. Before he married my mother. Another wife? No. A girlfriend? Caroline's mother? Yes. What was her name? Judith Mercer. I had never heard that name either. My father left Judith before Caroline was born. Did he know she was pregnant? Yes. And? He wanted nothing to do with them. Emily stared at him. So Grandma knew? My mother knew eventually. What about you? I didn't find out until I was 17.
How? Carolyn found me. That surprised me. She contacted you?
She showed up outside my high school. What did she want? To meet her brother. Mark smiled sadly. She was 22. I thought she was lying. But she wasn't. No. How did you know? She had photographs of my father, letters, and later we took a DNA test. So you stayed in contact for years. Secretly? My father demanded it. Why? He was ashamed. I shook my head. So because your father was ashamed, you erased your sister from our family? Mark looked at me. Double quotes. No, that isn't why. Then why? Because of what happened after Abigail disappeared. The room went quiet. Detective Torres leaned forward. Tell us. Mark swallowed. Carolyn changed. Of course she changed. Her daughter disappeared. It was more than grief. What do you mean? She became convinced Abigail hadn't been kidnapped by a stranger. Detective Cole asked. Who did she suspect? Mark looked at him. Our father. Emily whispered. Your dad took Abigail? No. At least I never believed he did. Why would Caroline think that? Because Dad had contacted her shortly before Abigail disappeared. For what? Money. I frowned. Your father wanted money from Caroline? No, he offered. Her money. For what? Mark hesitated. To disappear. I stared at him. What? He was planning to run for state office. That was another thing I knew about Mark's father. Richard Harper had been a respected attorney. For years.
His photograph had hung in Mark's
mother's hallway. I had met him only twice before he died. He'd always seemed distant. Formal. Cold. Mark continued. He didn't want anyone discovering he had another daughter. So he tried to pay Caroline. Yes. She refused. Yes. And then Abigail vanished. 3 weeks later. Detective Cole wrote something down. Was Richard investigated? Caroline gave police his name. And? He had an alibi. What alibi?
He was at a charity dinner in another state. Verified. Yes.
So why did Caroline continue suspecting him? Because someone had been following her. My stomach tightened. Who? She didn't know. She told you. Yes. When? The night before Abigail disappeared. Mark rubbed his forehead. She called me around 11. She said a dark SUV had been parked across from her house for 3 nights. Did she call police? No. Why not? She thought Dad was trying to scare her. Detective Torres asked, What happened the next day? Abigail disappeared. I looked at Emily. She had gone pale. But how does any of that explain her DNA? It doesn't. Then what aren't you telling us? Mark looked at me. After Abigail disappeared, Caroline asked me to take a DNA test. I frowned. Why? She wouldn't tell me. What kind of DNA test? Paternity. My heart stopped. Emily said, Paternity? Mark nodded. She wanted to know whether I was Abigail's father. I stared at him. Were you? No. Why would your sister even think that? She didn't. That makes no sense. She knew I wasn't Abigail's father. Then why test you? Because she wasn't actually testing paternity. Detective Cole stopped writing. What was she testing? Mark looked toward Abigail's photograph. She wanted to know whether Abigail was genetically related to me at all. I felt cold, and she was. How? Exactly as expected. She was my niece. Detective Cole frowned. Do you still have those results? No. Where? Were they done? A private lab. Name? I don't remember. Cole looked unconvinced. Try. I really don't. Why did Carolyn doubt Abigail was related to you? Mark stared at the table, because she had started questioning whether Abigail was biologically hers. That silenced everyone. I leaned forward. Carolyn gave birth to Abigail. Yes. So why would she think Abigail wasn't hers? Because of something that happened at the hospital. My stomach tightened. What? Mark looked at me. Carolyn had fertility treatment. 2. For a moment I couldn't speak. Where? Mark didn't answer. I already knew. Horizon? He nodded. The same clinic where Emily had been conceived 6 years later. Detective Torres asked, was Abigail conceived through IVF? Yes. And? Carolyn suspected an embryo mix-up? Eventually. I looked at Mark. Why? Because when Abigail was about 5, she developed a blood disorder. Serious, not life-threatening. But doctors ran genetic tests, and something didn't match Caroline's medical history. What? I don't know the details, Mark. I don't. He looked genuinely frustrated. Carolyn told me the clinic had contacted her afterward.
Horizon? Yes.
They said there had been an archival problem with several patient files from the year Abigail was conceived. What kind of problem? Missing embryo identification. Numbers. Detective Cole and Torres exchanged a look. I noticed. What? Neither answered. Detective Cole finally said, Horizon Fertility Center came up in the original investigation. Mark stared at him. What? Not publicly. Why? Because Abigail's mother told investigators she believed someone at Horizon knew why her daughter disappeared. My skin prickled. Did police investigate? Yes. And? Nothing actionable was found. Then why are you looking at each other like that? Cole opened the folder again. He pulled out a photocopy. It was an old police interview. Summary. Carolyn Mercer, October 7, 2009, 4 days after Abigail disappeared. One sentence had been highlighted. Mrs. Mercer repeatedly stated, they took the wrong girl. I read it twice. What does that mean? We never knew. Who are they? Carolyn refused to say. Why? She became afraid. Of who? She wouldn't identify anyone. Mark leaned closer. Carolyn never told me this. Detective Torres said, she may have been trying to protect you. From what? We don't know.
Emily
finally spoke. So Abigail disappeared because someone thought she was somebody else? Cole looked at her. That's one possibility. Emily pointed toward the DNA report. And now my DNA matches hers. Yes. Which means? We need the direct comparison. Emily didn't hesitate. Do it. I turned toward her. Emily. Mom, I want to know. You don't have to decide now. Yes, I do. She looked at Mark. Double quotes. If Dad knew all this and never told us, I want facts. Mark looked away. Emily extended her hand toward Detective Torres. What do you need? They used a cheek swab. It took less than a minute. Something so small. Something that could rewrite an entire family. Detective Cole said expedited results could take 24 to 48 hours before leaving. He asked Mark one final question. When did you last speak to Carolyn? Mark hesitated. About 5 years ago. I stared at him. You told me she died. 4 years ago. Yes. So you were still talking to her? Occasionally. What happened to her? Cancer. Where was she living? Oregon. Did you attend her funeral? No. Why? She didn't want one. Detective Cole's expression changed. How do you know she died? Mark looked at him. What? Who told you? A friend of hers. Name? I don't remember. Did you see a death certificate? No. Obituary? No. Speak. To a hospital? No. Cole closed his notebook. Mr. Harper, we have no record of Carolyn Mercer's death. Mark stared at him. That can't be right. We searched after Daniel contacted us. She died. According to whom? Mark couldn't answer. Detective Torres said, Daniel Mercer believes she died too. Then she did. Daniel received an email. So did I. I looked at Mark. You said a friend told you. It was an email from her friend. Do you still have it? I don't know. Detective Cole stood. Find it. The detectives left. Nobody spoke for almost a minute. Then Emily went upstairs. I followed her. She closed her bedroom door. Emily, I need a minute. Okay. Mom? Yes? Are you my biological mother? The question hurt more than I expected. Double quotes. Yes. You're sure? I carried you. That isn't what I asked. I couldn't answer with certainty anymore. Not after everything we'd heard. She saw that. Wow. Emily, whatever that test says, I'm your mother. I know. She sat on her bed. I'm just trying to understand why my DNA thinks a missing girl is my sister. So am I. She looked at me. Did you ever see your IVF records? Yes. All of them. I thought so. Did you ever do a DNA test with me? No. Why would I? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. I went downstairs. Mark was at the dining table searching his old email account. Find it? Maybe. He turned the laptop toward me. An email dated March 22nd, 2022. Subject. Regarding Carolyn, the sender was Lydia Shaw. The message was short. Mark, I'm sorry to tell you. Carolyn passed away Monday night. She asked me not to contact the family until after everything was handled. She wanted no service and no announcement. Please respect her wishes. I read it. Who's Lydia Shaw? I assumed a friend? You never verified? No. Did you respond? Yes. Did she answer? No. Search the email address. He did. Nothing. No website. No social media. No professional listing. Then I noticed the domain. It wasn't Gmail. It was a private domain. Shawfamilyservices.org. The website no longer existed. Mark searched archived results. One old listing appeared. Shaw Family Services, Private Adoption and Surrogacy Coordination. My heart started pounding. Adoption? Mark stared at the screen. I've never heard of them. I took out my phone and called Detective Cole. He answered. I told him. He became quiet. Send me the email. I did. 20 minutes later he called back. Rachel, don't contact that organization. Why? It was investigated in another case. What case? I can't discuss it yet. Does it involve Horizon? A pause. Yes. I closed my eyes. How? They referred clients to Horizon Fertility Center. For IVF, sometimes. What else? Surrogacy, donor arrangements, private adoptions. And the organization shut down. In 2014, after its founder was accused of falsifying birth records, my mouth went dry. Who founded it? A woman named Lydia Shaw. So she was real. Yes. Is she still alive? We believe so. Where? We're looking. I thought of the email. Why would an adoption coordinator tell Mark that Carolyn died? I don't know. Then Cole asked, Is Mark with you? Yes. Put me on speaker. I did. Mr. Harper, did Carolyn ever mention Lydia Shaw? Mark thought, no. Horizon? Yes. Did she ever mention a woman named Dr. Evelyn Price? Mark's face changed. I noticed immediately. Mark! He looked at me. Double quotes. Yes. Cole asked. How do you know that name? Mark stood. She was Caroline's fertility doctor. My stomach dropped. Cole said. She was also Rachel's. I stared at my husband. He looked at me. That can't be right. But it was. I remembered her. Dr. Price had been the physician who performed. My embryo transfer detective? Cole continued. And she disappeared from medical practice in December 2009, 1 month after my IVF cycle began. Why? No public explanation. Where is she now? We don't know. I looked at Mark. Abigail disappeared October 3rd. I began. IVF in November. Dr. Price disappeared in December. 3 events, 3 months. Same clinic. That wasn't coincidence. The next morning, I called Horizon. The clinic had changed ownership twice since. 2009. I requested my complete IVF file. The woman in records told me it could take weeks. I told her police were involved. 30 minutes later, a supervisor called. We located your archive chart. Good, but there's a discrepancy. Of course there was. What discrepancy? The treatment summary says 6 embryos were created. Yes, But the embryology inventory lists 7. I gripped the phone. 7? Yes. Where did the 7th come from? We don't know. Was it transferred? According to the procedure log. She stopped. What? 2 embryos were loaded for transfer. No, Mrs. Harper, 1 embryo was transferred. That is what your discharge paperwork says. But the laboratory log says 2. My heart hammered. What happened to the 2nd? I can't determine that from this file. Were both embryos mine? Another pause. I don't know. Why not? 1 identification field is blank. I sat down. Can you send me everything? Yes, now. The file arrived electronically. 40-8 pages. I read every one. Most meant nothing to me. Hormone levels. Medication doses. Follicle measurements. Then I found the embryo. Sheet. 6 embryos had identification numbers beginning with Rachel. Harper. Mark Harper. The 7th had a different code. CMDM03. I stared at it. CM.DM. Caroline Mercer. Daniel Mercer. No. Mark came behind me. What? I pointed. His face went pale. That could mean anything. Could it? I called Cole. I sent him the page. He called back 12 minutes later. His voice had changed. Rachel. What? Daniel just confirmed something. My chest tightened. What? When Abigail was conceived, Carolyn and Daniel had multiple embryos created. I stared at the code. How many? 8. What happened to them? 7 were accounted for. And the 8th? The Carolyn was told it had been destroyed due to abnormal development. I looked at Mark, but it wasn't. We don't know yet. Yes, we do. Rachel, the code is in my IVF file. Cole was silent. I said it again. An embryo belonging to Carolyn and Daniel was in my laboratory records 6 years later. Mark sat down. I could barely hear my own voice. Are you telling me Emily came from their embryo? We need the DNA results. They arrived that afternoon. Detective Cole and Torres returned in person. That told me the answer before they sat down. Emily came downstairs. Mark stood beside me. Cole placed 3 reports on the table. We compared. Emily's sample directly to the preserved Abigail sample. I reached for Mark's hand without thinking. Result? Cole looked at Emily. The relationship is consistent with full biological siblings. Emily stopped breathing. I closed my eyes. Full sisters. Not cousins. Not half-sisters. Full sisters, Detective Torres continued. We also compared Emily to Daniel Mercer. And? Daniel is consistent with being Emily's biological father. My knees nearly gave out. Mark whispered. What about Rachel? Torres looked at me. Double quotes. We need your sample for confirmation. I already knew. If Daniel is her biological father and Abigail is her full sister. Yes. Then Carolyn is probably her biological mother. Yes. Emily started crying. I moved toward her. She let me hold her. That mattered more than anything in that moment. I don't understand, she whispered. Neither do I. Did you know? No? Dad? No. I looked at the detectives. So, Horizon transferred Caroline's embryo into me. That is what the evidence currently suggests. By accident? Cole didn't answer. Detective. We don't think so. The room went cold. Why? He opened the second folder. Because we found Lydia Shaw. Mark stepped forward. Where? Arizona. Did she talk? Yes. What did she say? Cole looked at Emily. Then at me. She said Emily's embryo wasn't accidentally placed in your file. My mouth went dry. Then why was it there? Because someone paid Horizon to transfer it to you. I couldn't speak. Who? Cole hesitated. Lydia claims the request came from Carolyn Mercer. Emily pulled away from me. My biological mother. Yes. Why would she give me to someone she didn't know? Detective Torres answered. According to Lydia, Carolyn wasn't trying to give you away. I stared at her. Then what was she trying to do? She was trying to hide you. From whom? Cole slid one final photograph across the table. It showed Carolyn outside Horizon Fertility. Sent her in 2009. She wasn't alone. Beside her stood a little girl. Abigail, and behind them, near a dark SUV, was a man I recognized immediately. Richard Harper, Mark's father, the same man Carolyn had accused after Abigail disappeared. Detective Cole looked at Mark. Carolyn believed whoever took Abigail would eventually come looking for her remaining embryo. I stared at him. Why? Because Abigail wasn't kidnapped for ransom. What was she kidnapped for? Cole looked at Emily. Her DNA. Why Abigail was taken? Her DNA? The words sounded ridiculous. People kidnap children for money. Revenge. Custody. Not DNA. I looked at Detective Cole. What does that even mean? He pulled the photograph closer. Richard Harper wasn't interested in Abigail because she was Caroline's daughter. Mark stared at his father's younger face. Then why? Because of what Abigail inherited. Emily sat beside me. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Inherited from who? Detective Torres answered. Carolyn. Mark shook his head. Carolyn wasn't wealthy. This wasn't about money. Then what? Cole opened another folder. After we located Lydia Shaw, she gave us access to records she'd kept from 2009. Why would she keep records from something illegal? Insurance. Against who? Several people, including my father? Mark asked. Cole nodded. Double quotes. Yes. I looked at the photograph again. Richard standing beside that dark SUV. Watching Carolyn and Abigail. Was Richard involved in Abigail's disappearance? We believe he knew what was happening. That isn't what? I asked. We can't prove yet that he ordered it. Mark slammed his palm against the table. He's dead. Stop protecting him. We aren't. Then tell us what Lydia said. Detective Torres took over. In 2008, Richard contacted Lydia about a private genetic test. For himself? No. For Carolyn? Yes. Mark frowned. Why? Richard had recently learned about a hereditary condition in his family. What condition? Familial dilated cardiomyopathy. I knew the words separately. Together. They meant almost nothing. Torres explained. A genetic condition that can weaken the heart muscle. Some people carry a disease-associated variant and remain healthy for years. Others develop serious problems. Mark stared at her. My father had heart disease. Yes, he died of heart failure. Yes. Are you saying Carolyn had it? She carried the same variant. Emily immediately asked, Do I? Detective Cole raised a hand. We don't know. And a DNA relationship test cannot answer that. You'd need appropriate medical genetic testing and counseling. That distinction mattered. This wasn't something I wanted. Emily diagnosing herself from a genealogy website. I looked back at Cole. Why kidnap Abigail over a genetic condition? Because the condition alone wasn't what interested Richard. What was? Abigail appeared not to carry the family variant. I stared at him. So, according to Lydia, Richard became obsessed with finding out why. Mark looked disgusted. That still makes no sense. It will. Cole pulled out a photocopied letter. It was from a research laboratory, dated June 2009. 4 months before Abigail disappeared. He placed it in front of Mark. Your father had been privately funding a research project. On heart disease? Yes. Why? Initially, because of his own diagnosis. I looked at the letter. What does this have to do with Abigail? Researchers needed samples from multiple relatives to study how the variant was being inherited. Carolyn refused. Yes. Why? Because Richard had hidden her existence for most of her life. She didn't trust him. I could understand that, but somehow he tested Abigail anyway. Cole nodded. Double quotes without Caroline's informed consent, according to Lydia. Emily looked horrified. How? A sample collected during a routine pediatric visit was diverted. Mark whispered, My father arranged that? We believe so. And what did the results show? That Abigail didn't carry the particular variant Richard expected. That's good. Medically, potentially. But Richard thought it proved something else. What? Cole looked at Mark. That Carolyn might not be Richard's biological daughter. Silence. Mark slowly sat back. My father thought Carolyn wasn't his? Yes, but they had done DNA testing. Not at that point. Mark looked at me. Everything was circling back to family identity. Again, what did Richard do? He ordered broader testing. And Detective Torres answered. The results showed Carolyn was his biological daughter. So Abigail simply didn't inherit the variant. Correct. Then that should have ended it. It should have. But it didn't. No. Why? Cole turned the research letter over. On the back was a handwritten note. A.M. Retest. Maternal line inconsistent. What does maternal line mean? Emily asked. Torres answered carefully. It suggested that some of Abigail's genetic markers didn't fit the maternal family information Richard's researchers had been given. I immediately thought of Horizon, the embryo mix-up. Yes. Richard had accidentally discovered the same thing. Carolyn would later suspect. Abigail was genetically related to Carolyn and Daniel, but something in the records surrounding the embryo had been wrong. What was inconsistent? I asked. Cole looked toward Mark. The embryo labeled as the one used to conceive Abigail wasn't supposed to belong to Carolyn and Daniel. My head hurt, but DNA proves Abigail was their daughter. Exactly. So the embryo was theirs. But the label was wrong. Yes. Meaning Horizon had a record problem. Or someone had changed it. I felt cold. Lydia. That's what Carolyn eventually believed. Detective Cole laid out the timeline. In 2002. Carolyn and Daniel went to Horizon Fertility Center. 8 embryos were created. 1 was transferred. That pregnancy became Abigail. 7 remained in storage. At least according to Carolyn. But the clinic's internal inventory told a different story. 1 embryo had been assigned the wrong identification code. Later, someone corrected part of the database. Not all of it. For years, nobody noticed. Until Richard's private testing raised questions. Why? Would Richard care about a clerical error at a fertility clinic? Mark asked. Because he discovered Lydia Shaw was involved. Did he know her? Yes. How? She had worked for him. That stopped us. Doing what? Private investigative work. Mark stared at Cole. Lydia ran an adoption agency. Later, what did she do for my father? Background investigations, locating people, handling sensitive family matters. I almost laughed at the phrase, sensitive family matters, like hiding Carolyn, like following Abigail, like destroying evidence. So Richard hired Lydia to investigate Horizon? Yes, and she found the embryo error. She found much more. Cole pulled out another page, a list of patient identification. Numbers. No names. Just dates and codes. 20-3 entries. What is this? Horizon embryos whose database records were altered between 2001 and 2009. My stomach dropped. 23. Yes, by accident. We don't believe so. Why would someone alter embryo records? Different reasons. Some appear connected to unauthorized donor substitutions. Others to private surrogacy arrangements that were concealed from one or more parties. Emily looked at me. I could see her trying to process the fact that her existence was somewhere inside that mess. I squeezed her hand. Cole continued. Carolyn discovered the list in September 2009, 1 month before Abigail disappeared. Yes. How?
Lydia
gave it to her. Why? Because Lydia wanted out. Out of what? Torres answered. A scheme involving Dr. Evelyn Price, the doctor who had performed my IVF procedure. Finally, we had reached the center. What scheme? For years, Price had been working with Lydia to arrange off-record embryo transfers. I felt sick, without the patient's knowing, in some cases. Why? Money, avoiding legal adoption procedures, concealing donor identities, occasionally helping families bypass eligibility restrictions. Mark shook his head. And nobody noticed? Most patients received the child they expected. The paperwork looked legitimate. Most? Cole nodded. Mistakes happened. Abigail?
No.
Abigail appears to have been transferred to Carolyn correctly. Then why was her embryo record altered? Because someone later used its identification number to hide another embryo. I stared at him. Emily's, yes. There it was. The bridge between Abigail and Emily. The code in my IVF file hadn't meant. Emily was literally the 8th Mercer embryo recorded under that exact identity from the beginning. Someone had reused Abigail's embryo family identifier too. Conceal a remaining Mercer embryo. Why? I asked. Because by late 2009, Carolyn believed someone was going through Horizon's records looking for her remaining embryos. Richard? No, that surprised me. Then who? Dr. Price. Why? Would Caroline's own doctor want them? Because Caroline had threatened to expose her. The room became quiet. Carolyn knew about the illegal transfers. Yes. And she had evidence. The list. Then why not go to police? She intended to. When? October 5th, 2009. I stared at him. Abigail disappeared. October 3rd, 2 days before Caroline was scheduled to meet an investigator. That was not random. Price took Abigail? We don't know who physically removed her from the festival. But you think it was connected? Yes. Why take the child instead of the evidence? Leverage. My stomach turned. They took a 6-year-old girl to silence her mother. That is our working theory, Emily whispered. Did it work? Cole looked at her. Yes. Caroline canceled the meeting. She stopped accusing Horizon publicly. And within weeks, she moved out of Bellwether. But she never got Abigail back, I said. No. Then why stay silent? Because she was told Abigail was alive. My heart sank. Was she? We don't know. Daniel Mercer arrived at our house that evening. I'd seen his name on a screen. I'd seen photographs. But seeing him in person was different. He was 50-1 gray at the temples. Exhausted eyes. The moment he saw Emily, he stopped walking. He didn't rush toward her. Didn't try to hug her. He just stared. Then he covered his mouth. Emily stood beside me. Daniel whispered. You look like Carolyn. Emily's eyes filled. Daniel started crying. I'm sorry. For what? For showing up like this. He looked at me. May I come in? I nodded. We sat in the living room. Daniel brought photographs. Not police photographs. Family. Photographs. Abigail asleep on a couch. Abigail covered in birthday cake. Carolyn carrying her at the beach. Emily looked through them slowly. Then Daniel gave her one of Carolyn at 16. The resemblance was unmistakable. Emily touched the edge. That's my biological mother? Daniel nodded. Double quotes. Yes. Is she alive? He swallowed. I don't know anymore. I looked at him. What do you mean? I believe she died. Because of Lydia's email. Yes. Did Carolyn ever tell you about the embryos? Daniel looked down. After Abigail disappeared. What did she say? That one had to survive. I felt my chest tighten. One embryo. Yes, Emily. He looked at her. I think so. Why me? Emily asked. Daniel struggled to answer. Carolyn believed whoever took Abigail knew about the remaining embryos. Why would they care? She never told me. Did you agree to give an embryo to us? No. I felt relief and horror at the same time. So Carolyn did it without you.
Yes. Why choose me? Daniel looked at Mark. She didn't.
I frowned. What? She chose Mark. The room went silent. Mark stared at him. I barely knew Carolyn by then. She trusted you. She was my sister. Exactly. I understood. Carolyn needed somewhere to hide an embryo. She chose her half-brother, but Mark and I hadn't even been planning IVF when Abigail disappeared. How could she know we'd go to Horizon? Daniel shook his head. She didn't. Then. This doesn't work. I know. Something was missing. Mark suddenly stood. My father. We all looked at him. What? He knew Rachel and I had been trying to conceive. I stared at him. We weren't doing IVF yet. No, but we'd been trying for almost 2 years. That wasn't a secret. My mother knew. My father knew. Daniel's expression changed. You think Richard arranged it? Mark started pacing. If Caroline told him she needed to protect an embryo, she didn't trust him. Not before Abigail disappeared. That was important. Before the disappearance, Caroline suspected Richard. Afterward, maybe something changed. Daniel slowly nodded. She met with him. When? About 2 weeks after Abigail disappeared. Why? She wouldn't tell me. Detective. Cole had mentioned Richard knew more than he admitted. Maybe this was it. Carolyn had gone to the man she distrusted because her daughter was missing and she was desperate. What happened after the meeting? I asked. Daniel thought. Carolyn called me that night. What did she say? She said, if they took one child because of me, I'm not letting them take another. Emily looked down. Me. She had meant Emily. Or the embryo that would become Emily. Mark searched his father's old estate records. Richard had died in 2016. Most paperwork was gone, but Mark's mother still had several boxes stored in her garage. We drove there that night. Susan was confused, then angry, then frightened when Mark explained why police had reopened Abigail's case. I told Richard this would come back. Mark stared at her. You knew? I knew. Carolyn came to him. About Abigail? Yes. What did Dad do? Susan sat down. He helped her. That was not the answer we'd expected. How? She needed something hidden. An embryo? Susan looked at me. So, I felt my stomach twist. You knew Emily wasn't genetically ours? No. Then what did you know? That Richard arranged a transfer. To me? I didn't know who the recipient was. Mark looked furious. Dad helped Carolyn move an embryo illegally.
He said it was the only way to protect it. From Price?
I don't know that name. Lydia Shaw? Susan's face changed. That was enough. You know Lydia. She worked for Richard. We know. Susan looked toward the window. She frightened me. Why? Because Richard eventually realized she'd been playing both sides. What sides? Carolyn and Dr. Price. My pulse quickened. Lydia gave Carolyn evidence against Price. Yes. But she was also working with Price? Yes. Why? Money. That fit. Did Richard know who took Abigail? Susan started crying. I think he found out. Mark moved closer. When? About a month after she disappeared. Who? He never told me. Did he tell police? No. Why the hell not? Because Abigail was still alive. Everything stopped. Daniel stood. What did you say? Susan looked terrified. Richard received proof. What proof? A photograph of Abigail. Yes. When? November 2009. Daniel's voice broke. My daughter was alive? Yes. Where is the photograph? Susan looked toward the garage. I kept everything. We found it inside Richard's old briefcase. A Polaroid. Abigail sitting on a bed. She was holding that day's newspaper. November 14th, 2009. 6 weeks after she disappeared. Alive. On the back was a handwritten message. The girl stays safe if the file stays buried. Daniel sank into a chair. For 17 years.
He'd had no proof his daughter survived the festival. Now he was holding it. I looked through the
briefcase. There were letters. Bank statements. A copy of Caroline's Horizon list. In one envelope marked for Caroline. Never sent. Inside was a letter from Richard. Mark read aloud. Carolyn. I found where Lydia moved the girl. Daniel stood. Where? Mark continued. The location is not safe to approach until federal investigators are involved. Price knows we're looking. The letter ended there. No address. No location. Why wasn't it sent? I asked. Susan shook her head. I don't know. Daniel was frantic. Search everything. We did. Every pocket. Every folder. Every scrap of paper. Then Emily found something tucked into the lining of the briefcase. A hotel receipt. Cedar Glen Motor Lodg. November 16, 2009. Room 214. On the back, Richard had written, AM gives LS gives EP Abigail Mercer, Lydia Shaw Evelyn Price. Below that, girl moved north. New name. Daniel stared at it. New name? My phone rang. Detective Cole. I answered immediately. We found proof. Abigail was alive 6 weeks after she disappeared. There was silence. Rachel, where are you? At Susan's. Don't leave. Why? We just found something too. What? Lydia finally gave us the name. Abigail was assigned after 2009. Daniel moved closer to the phone. What name? Cole hesitated, then said, Anna Shaw. Daniel closed his eyes. Shaw. Yes. Lydia raised her? For a period of time, we believe so. Where is Anna now? We're working on that. Is she alive? We think so. Daniel began crying for the first time. This wasn't just a cold case. Abigail might still be alive. Then Cole said, "There's another problem." What? Anna Shaw's records show she had a child in 2010. I frowned. So? A daughter. Something about Cole's voice made my stomach tighten. What does that have to do with us? We don't know yet. Then he said, "But the birth date is the same as Emily's." I looked at my daughter. No. Cole continued. And according to the birth certificate, the baby died less than 24 hours after delivery. Emily whispered, "What?" I gripped the phone. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Lydia says that death certificate was fake." The room went silent. I could barely speak. What happened to the baby? Cole took a breath. Lydia claims the infant was transferred through Horizon. No, Rachel, no. Emily came from an embryo. That is what your medical records say. We have the embryology log. Yes. DNA proves Daniel is her father. Yes. Then Emily is Caroline's daughter. Cole went quiet, and that silence terrified. Detective? The test proves Daniel is Emily's biological father. Yes. It proves Abigail and Emily are full biological siblings. Yes. But that does not prove Caroline gave birth to neither or both in the way the paperwork claims. I felt dizzy. What are you saying? We ordered a direct maternity comparison using a preserved medical sample from Caroline. I could hear my heartbeat, and the result came back 20 minutes ago. Emily grabbed my arm. Cole said, "Caroline Mercer is Abigail's biological mother." I waited, but, he continued, "she is not Emily's." Nobody moved. That was impossible. If Abigail and Emily were full sisters, they had to share both biological parents. Unless I looked at Mark. He understood at the same moment. Daniel wasn't. The connection we thought he was, or one of the old samples had been mislabeled. I whispered, "Run the tests again." We already started. Then what do you think happened? Cole was quiet. We think someone substituted one of the reference samples. When? Years ago. Whose? We don't know. Then Emily's phone buzzed. She looked down. Unknown number. A text. One sentence. "Your mother is alive. Stop letting the police test the wrong woman." Emily went pale. Another message arrived. Photograph. A woman standing outside a grocery store. Taken recently. Maybe that morning. She looked to be in her 40s. Brown hair. Green eyes. Emily's eyes. Below. It was a name. Anna Sagw. Daniel stared at the screen. His knees almost gave out. Abigail. Emily looked at him. What? Daniel touched the screen with one trembling finger. That scar above her eyebrow. His voice broke. Abigail got it when she fell off her bicycle when she was 4. The missing 6-year-old girl hadn't died. She had grown up. And if the message was telling the truth, we had misunderstood Emily's connection to her from the beginning. Emily looked at me. "Mom." I held her hand. She whispered, "If Abigail is alive." Her eyes moved back to the message. "And they're calling her my mother." I couldn't answer, because suddenly the impossible timeline wasn't impossible anymore. Abigail disappeared. At 6. She would have been 13 when Emily was born. 2. Young. The dates still didn't work, unless the agent. Abigail's original records was wrong too. Daniel seemed to realize it. He stared at me. Her birth certificate. What? Abigail's? What about it? Caroline never had the original. The room went silent. She was born at Horizon's affiliated maternity center. I felt cold. Daniel continued. They mailed the certificate weeks later. Detective. Cole heard him through the phone. Daniel, how old was Abigail when she disappeared? 6. Are you certain? Daniel opened his mouth, then stopped. Cole asked again. Did you witness her birth? No. Did anyone in your family? No. Then, we need to verify something immediately. What? The first 6 years of Abigail Mercer's life. I looked at the photograph of the little girl with the red bicycle. For 2 days, we'd been trying to solve what happened to her after October 3, 2009. Now I realized we might have to. Solve something even stranger. Who Abigail Mercer had been before she disappeared. The girl before Abigail for the next hour. Nobody in that room talked about Emily. Not directly. We talked about Abigail. The little girl in the red bicycle. Photograph. The missing child. The girl everyone had assumed was 6 years old when she disappeared. Detective. Cole stayed on speaker while Torres began pulling archived records from Bellwether School. Enrollment. Pediatric visits. Property records. Anything that could place Abigail in time. The first problem appeared almost immediately. There was no hospital. Birth record under the name Abigail Mercer. Daniel stared at the phone. That is impossible. Cole answered, we found a birth certificate. And there's a record. No, we found a certificate issued through a private filing service. What does that mean? It means the document existed, but the hospital named on it has. No matching delivery record. Daniel went pale. What hospital? North Valley Women's Center. I looked at Mark. That name sounded familiar. Then I remembered North Valley had been affiliated with Horizon Fertility Center. Everything kept coming back to Horizon. Detective Torres joined the call. We also checked Abigail's pediatric history. And her first documented medical visit under the name Abigail Mercer occurred when she was listed as 22 months old. Daniel frowned. That can't be right. Caroline took her to doctors before that. Where? I don't know. She handled most of it. So there are no verified medical records from Abigail's first 21 months. No. What about photographs? Daniel reached for the box he brought. There are hundreds. Any from the hospital? He searched. Nothing. Newborn. Photos? He looked faster. Still nothing. First birthday? He found one. Abigail sitting beside a cake, but suddenly the photograph looked different. The child in it appeared older than 1, maybe 2, maybe older. Emily leaned closer. She doesn't look 1. Daniel shook his head. She was always tall. Maybe, or maybe every photograph had been assigned the wrong year. I felt uneasy. Daniel, when did you meet Abigail? He looked at me. What? When did you first physically meet her? He thought. She was almost 2. You didn't see her as a newborn? No. Why? Caroline and I weren't close during that period. Detective Cole said, Daniel, did you ever see Caroline pregnant? Silence. I felt my stomach drop. Daniel stared at the floor. No. Everyone stopped moving. You never saw your wife pregnant?
Cole
asked. She wasn't my wife then. I froze. What? Daniel looked at me. Caroline and I married later. I tried to process that. You said Abigail was Caroline and Daniel's daughter. Yes, but you weren't together when she was. Supposedly born? Not officially. Were you dating? On and off. Did Caroline tell you she was pregnant? Yes. When? After the baby was born. That changed everything. Emily whispered. You never saw her pregnant. No. Did you take a DNA test with Abigail when she was little? Daniel closed his eyes. No. The earlier test Mark described had been between Mark and Abigail. Not Daniel. I suddenly understood how much we'd assumed. Then how did you know Abigail was your daughter? Caroline told me. And the DNA test police used? From my genealogy profile. Detective Cole interrupted. And we need to correct something. My heart tightened. What? The direct comparison between Daniel and Emily was run against the reference sample listed under Daniel's profile, but the lab flagged a metadata conflict an hour ago. Daniel stood, meaning? The sample associated with your profile may not be yours. What? How is that possible? Cole answered, the original upload came through a private genealogy service that Horizon once partnered with. We are auditing chain of custody now. I felt sick. Even the DNA we'd trusted might have been contaminated by the same network. Emily stared at me. So what do we actually know? That was the right question. For the first time in days, we stopped treating old paperwork as truth. I counted. Only the facts we could trust. We know you came from me. Emily looked at me. You carried me. Yes. We know the IVF records were altered. Yes. We know Abigail was taken. Yes. And we know someone is texting me. Yes. Everything else was uncertain. I looked at her. We start over. The unknown number texted again 20 minutes later. If you want the truth, come without police. Below it was an address. A diner outside Bellwether. Mark immediately said no. Emily said yes. I looked at both of them. We're not going. Alone. The message came again. Rachel only. That frightened me. Whoever was sending these messages knew my name. They knew Emily. They knew the investigation had reopened. Detective Cole told me not to respond. I listened for 6 minutes. Then another photograph arrived. This one wasn't of Anna Shaw. It was of me. Standing outside my house. Taken that afternoon. I felt my stomach turn. They're watching us. Cole's voice changed. Everyone stay inside. A patrol car was dispatched, but the next message made the decision for me. I have Caroline's original file. Then. And I know who Emily's biological mother is. Emily looked at me. I couldn't read her. Expression. Fear. Hope. Guilt. Maybe all three. I hated that anyone had made. My daughter questioned where she belonged. I typed one sentence. Who are you? The reply arrived immediately. Abigail. Daniel made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob. I wrote, prove it. A photograph appeared. Not the red bicycle picture. Not an old school photograph. Recent woman holding an old silver bracelet. Daniel grabbed the phone. That's hers. What? The bracelet. His hands shook. Carolyn gave it to Abigail before she disappeared. The woman in the photograph had the scar Daniel remembered. Same eyebrow. Same shape. Older face, but unmistakably connected to the child we'd seen. Abigail Mercer was alive. Police did not allow me to go to the diner alone. They compromised. I would enter alone. Cole and Torres would be nearby. Emily stayed with Mark. Daniel insisted on coming to Bellwether, but waited with the detectives. At 7:12 p.m. I walked into the diner. Only 6 customers were inside. At the back booth sat the woman from the photograph. She looked about 29 or 30. Not 20-3. Not the age Abigail should have been. That was my first confirmation that the birth records had lied. She stood when she saw me. Rachel. Yes. She looked terrified. So you came? Are you Abigail? She glanced toward the windows. My name is Anna now. Were you Abigail? She nodded. I sat across from her. How old are you? She gave a sad smile. That's the first question police should have asked 17 years ago. How old? 31. My heart raced. If she was 31 now. She'd been 14 when she disappeared, not 6. Every poster, every newspaper story, every police alert. Wrong. How did everyone believe you were 6? Because that's what my record said. Why? Carolyn needed people to believe I was younger. Carolyn wasn't your mother? Anna looked down. No. Then who was? She opened a folder. Inside was a photograph of a woman I'd never seen. Late 20s. Dark hair. Hospital gown, holding a newborn. On the back, INNA 1995. My real mother was named Rebecca Shaw. Related to Lydia, her younger sister. My stomach tightened. So Lydia was your aunt? Yes. Where was Rebecca? She died when I was a baby. And Lydia gave you to Carolyn? Anna nodded. Double quotes unofficially. Double quay. Why? Because Carolyn couldn't have children, but she used Horizon.
Later.
Everything began aligning. Carolyn had already been raising Anna when she went through IVF. But why change your age? Because Lydia had never processed a legal adoption. By the time Carolyn wanted to enroll me in school, they needed records. So they created them. Yes, they made you younger. Much younger. Why 6 years? Because it made the paper trail easier. Different school district, different vaccination schedule. Less chance someone would compare records. It was criminal. But not the crime we had thought. Then why did you disappear? Anna's face changed. Because Carolyn discovered Horizon was using me. How? I started having blood drawn all the time. By Richard.
Not just him? Dr. Price?
Anna nodded. They said it was medical research. Did Carolyn know? Not at first. What were they researching? The same heart condition. But if Richard wasn't your biological grandfather, he wasn't. Exactly. Anna's DNA shouldn't have matched Caroline's family at all. That is what exposed everything, she said. When the test came back, Price realized I wasn't genetically related to Carolyn. So, she realized Caroline's documents were false. And Carolyn realized Price's embryo records were false. Yes, they each had evidence against the other. Mutual blackmail. A perfect trap. Then why did Price take you? She didn't. I froze. Who did? Carolyn. What? Anna looked toward the window. She staged my disappearance. I stared at her. No. Yes. The festival? Planned. The search parties? She knew there would be a search. Why would a mother do that? To get me. Away from Horizon. My head spun. So nobody kidnapped you. No. What about the dark SUV? Richard's. He helped? Eventually. That explained why Richard never sent his letter. He wasn't only investigating, he was participating. In the cover-up. Anna continued. Carolyn believed Price would come after me if she knew where I was. Why? Because I could prove Price had been using patient children in research without consent. So Carolyn sent you to Lydia? Yes. And you became Anna Shaw? Yes. Why didn't Carolyn ever tell Daniel? She didn't trust him. Why? Because she thought he was still talking to Richard. I thought about Daniel sitting outside, believing for 17 years his daughter had been kidnapped. But Daniel loved you. Anna's eyes filled. I know. Then, why let him suffer? I was 14. That stopped me. Of course. She hadn't designed this. Adults had. Carolyn told me it would be for a few weeks. And a few weeks became years. The pattern again. Secrets growing because nobody knew how to undo the first lie. When did you learn the truth? When I was 19. Why didn't you come back? Carolyn begged me not to. Why? Price was still alive. Where is Carolyn? Anna looked at me. Alive. I felt my pulse spike. Where? I'll tell you. But first you need to understand Emily. There it was. I leaned closer. Is Emily your daughter? Anna's eyes filled. No. Relief hit me so hard I almost felt dizzy. Then why did someone text that you were her mother? I did. I stared at her. You lied? I needed the police to stop trusting the old reference samples. Why? Because Price switched them. So the DNA results, some were real. Some weren't. Which ones? The only comparison you should trust is Emily against a freshly collected sample from you and Mark. My heart stopped. What? Anna pushed another paper toward me. A recent independent DNA report. 2 samples. One labeled Emily Harper, the other Mark. Harper probability of paternity, 99.999%. I stared at it. No. Emily is Mark's biological daughter. My hands began shaking, but the clinic said the embryo was Carolyn and Daniel's. The clinic records were manipulated. Then what? Embryo was transferred to me? Yours. I could barely breathe. And Caroline's? Anna looked at me, hidden. Where? She used your cycle as cover. I stared. Explain. Price was searching Horizon's storage for Caroline's remaining embryo because Carolyn had threatened to expose her. Richard helped Carolyn alter the log so Price would think the embryo had been transferred into you. But it wasn't. No. So Emily was always ours. Yes. Then why did Emily match Abigail? Because the genealogy system was comparing Emily against a contaminated reference profile created years ago using mixed samples from Price's research project. I felt anger rise. All this because of bad old samples? Not bad. Deliberately falsified. That was worse. Why didn't the new direct test catch it? Anna looked confused. What direct test? The detective said they compared Emily with Abigail's preserved toothbrush. Anna's face changed immediately. There is no preserved toothbrush. My blood ran cold. What? When Caroline staged my disappearance, she took everything that could produce usable DNA. Khalees had a baby tooth. No.
Hairbrush?
No. How do you know? Because I helped pack them. Then the entire investigation shifted again. Someone had recently introduced fake evidence into Abigail's cold case. Someone wanted Emily connected to her. Who? I whispered. Anna looked at me. Dr. Price. She disappeared in 2009. She changed her name. She's alive? Yes. Where? Anna glanced toward the diner entrance, then whispered, "Closer than you think." A waitress walked past us. Anna went pale. "Don't turn around." My heart pounded. "What?" "She followed you." "Who?" Anna didn't answer. She reached under the table and squeezed my wrist. The woman sitting by the register. I looked at the reflection in the diner window instead. Older. Woman. Silver hair. Glasses. Coffee cup. She looked ordinary. Anna whispered, "That's Evelyn Price." Police moved immediately. Price tried to leave through the kitchen. Detective Torres caught her at the rear exit. There was no dramatic chase. No gun. No fight. Just a 70-year-old woman being handcuffed beside a dumpster while insisting everyone had misunderstood. But the bag she carried ended that argument quickly. Inside were copies of Emily's genealogy results. Police correspondence. Photograph of my house. And 2 sealed biological sample kits labeled Emily Harp Rande Nasaj. She had been manipulating the reopened case from the beginning. Why? To find Carolyn. Anna was bait. Emily was leverage. Price believed Carolyn would surface if another young woman became entangled in the same scandal. She was right, but not in the way she expected. Carolyn contacted police the next morning. Not because of Emily, because she heard Price had been arrested. She had been living under another name in Montana. She came back voluntarily. Daniel met her at the police station. I wasn't there. That belonged to them. Later, Daniel told me he cried before she did. He asked one question. "Why did you let me believe Abigail was gone?" Carolyn answered, "Because I thought believing she was missing would keep you searching, and searching would keep Price watching you instead of her. It was cruel. It was calculated. It also came from panic. Daniel didn't forgive her. At least not then. Anna met him 2 days later. That reunion was different. She remembered him, not as the father in her fake birth certificate, but as the man who had read her bedtime stories, the man who taught her to ride the red bicycle, the man who had called her his daughter even though they weren't biologically related. Anna hugged him, and for Daniel, that was enough to break 17 years of grief. The new DNA tests were done through an independent accredited laboratory with verified collection. No old reference samples. No Horizon records. No genealogy uploads. Just people. The results were simple. Mark was Emily's biological father. I was Emily's biological mother. She was ours. Exactly as we'd always believed. Emily cried when I told her, then laughed through the tears. So I destroyed our family for nothing. I pulled her into my arms. No. She looked at me. You found a missing woman. That was true. Her curiosity had reopened a case everyone thought was dead. It exposed manipulated fertility records. Illegal research. False identity documents. And a woman who had lived 17 years under a name nobody was searching for. Mark had to deal with his own family secrets. Carolyn really was his half-sister. Richard really had hidden her. And Richard really had helped stage Anna's disappearance once he understood what Price had been doing. He had done one good thing buried inside years of cowardice. That didn't erase the rest. Horizon Fertility Center's old cases were reopened. Not every irregularity meant a child had been switched. Not every altered record led to a crime. Investigators were careful about that. But several families were contacted. Some chose testing, some didn't. I understood both. DNA can answer questions. It can also create ones. You're not ready to ask. Price faced charges related to falsifying medical records, evidence tampering, unlawful handling of biological material, and other conduct still under investigation. Lydia Shaw cooperated. Carolyn did too. Anna wanted one thing, her real name back, not Abigail Mercer. Not only Anna Shaw, she eventually chose Anna Abigail Mercer Shaw, a name that acknowledged both lives, the child she had been, and the woman she'd become. Months later, Emily asked me something while we were cleaning the kitchen. Would you let me take the DNA test again? I laughed. You're joking. Kind of. No. She smiled. Fair. Then she became serious. Mom? Yeah? Are you mad I did it? I thought about that. Her little genealogy kit had nearly convinced us. She belonged to another family. It made her question me. Mark herself. But it also found Anna. No. Really? Really? Because the test wasn't the problem. She waited. The people who lied about what the DNA meant were. That became the lesson I remembered. Evidence is only as trustworthy as the person handling it. A photograph can be mislabeled. A birth certificate can be falsified. Medical record can be altered. Even a DNA profile can point in the wrong direction if someone corrupts the sample behind it. For days, I kept asking the wrong question. Who is Emily really? The answer had never changed. She was my daughter. The real mystery was why someone needed us to doubt it. A year after everything happened, Daniel invited us to Bellwether. Anna was there. So was Carolyn. It was uncomfortable. Some wounds don't disappear because the case is solved, but they were trying. Anna brought the old red bicycle photograph. The one that had been used on thousands of missing person flyers. She placed it beside a new photograph of herself. Same green eyes, same eyebrow scar, older. Now. Alive. Emily looked at both. It's weird. Anna smiled. What? Everyone spent 17 years looking for a 6-year-old. Yeah, but you were 14. Anna laughed softly. That's why no one found me. That sentence stayed with me. Sometimes people aren't impossible to find because they've vanished. They're impossible to find because everyone has been told to look for the wrong person. That was what happened to Anna. And for a few terrifying days, it almost happened to Emily too. I still have Abigail's old missing poster. Not because she is missing anymore, because underneath the photograph I wrote the date the case was finally solved. And beside it, Emily wrote, DNA didn't find her. A lie-in. The DNA did. It isn't technically the whole story, but it's close enough. My daughter took a DNA test because she wanted to know where our family came from. Instead, she uncovered a missing girl case that had been built on a false identity. A fertility clinic full of altered records, and 17 years of people looking for a child who had never been the age they were told. And when the truth finally came out, the biggest surprise wasn't that Emily belonged to another family. It was that she had belonged to us all along. End of story.